Alright guys, what's up? We're going to be looking at this video here today. It's going to be different than what we normally do. Normally we do reviews and just kind of some stuff that I buy here and there and kind of like. But with a lot of the recent news of certain cases being in the public, a lot of us have been paying more attention to how the verdicts have been turning out because they kind of play into how similar cases or just your rights in general might be treated in the future. And it's more of a serious topic, and I think no matter which way you view things, it's very important to look at, and that's what the intention of today's video is. We're going to be breaking this case down, or this video at least. I'm sure more details are going to be released later, and maybe we'll follow up depending. But one thing I do want to say is that this video is not meant to instigate or like kind of make anybody upset. I do encourage people to comment their thoughts in the comment section, but if you're feeling like a bit of negative emotions, I want to kind of advise to kind of just double check yourself before commenting and potentially making anyone else upset or just putting out negative energy. That's not the point of this video, or I really don't want to see that in the comments. I would love for you guys to kind of just conversate and kind of, I guess, share solid points. But that's what we're going to be doing here today. I'm going to be looking at this video a little bit. I'm going to press play, let it run for a little bit, and kind of just comment on it. There's a few things. I watched it once before, and it's just kind of interesting the way they are seeing certain things. And it's a very upsetting situation, first of all. But at the end of the day, we have a law that we have to follow, and no matter how upsetting it is, there's reasons we have those laws because emotions can do crazy things. Like for right now, they're introducing these manslaughter charges to the parents, and you'll hear their reasoning. But I mean, if this reasoning is staying consistent, we should be seeing the gun sellers being not even held accountable, but we should be seeing way more charges than we're seeing here, based on their logic. And the reason we're not seeing them is because, well, frankly, they're not responsible. I mean, one person's actions can't like play into other people's actions as well. That wasn't the intention, that other people had certain actions. We're gonna get into the video and you'll see kind of what I mean. But I'm gonna need my headphones for this, so we're gonna get started. Like, I'm just gonna let this play.
During this time. While the shooter was the one who entered the high school and pulled the trigger, there are other individuals who contributed to the events on November 30th, and it's my intention to hold them accountable as well. It's imperative we prevent this from happening again. No other parent or community should have to live through this nightmare. I have shared previously, and I will reiterate today, that gun ownership is a right, and with that right comes great responsibility. Based on the information and evidence I have received, today I am announcing charges against the shooter's parents, Jennifer and James Crumbley. The charges are as follows. James Crumbley is charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Jennifer Crumbley is also charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
I want to pause right here because this is where I noticed something. I know more charges can probably be introduced later, but I just want to point out that if their logic is consistent, there was 4 people who died and I think another 7 who were injured. And so if the actual shooter himself is being held accountable for all those things, and they're saying that the parents are just as accountable to the same degree as the shooter, I mean, you have to be as consistent. And just notice how at the moment, they're not seeing it that way. I don't know if they're going to introduce more things later or whether you agree with that or not. I'm just pointing out the fact, or what I see as them being inconsistent with their logic. They're seeing them only responsible for the dead people, but not the injured. So we're going to keep playing here.
I will now publish the details that led to that decision and have already previously been made public, which allows me to comment on them in a swear-to that has just taken place in the district court by Officer Tim Willis, Detective Tim Willis. The investigation into the school shooting incident at Oxford High School, which occurred on November 30th, 2021, has revealed that James Crumbley purchased a Sig Sauer 9mm model SP 2022 from Acme Shooting Goods in Oxford, Michigan on November 26, 2021. A store employee confirms that Ethan Crumbley was present with James at the time of the purchase. Per statute, James Crumbley completed ATF Form 5309A. On or about November 26, 21, Ethan Crumbley's social media post.
All right, so before she moves on, I want to point out she mentioned the purchase of the gun, and I'm not sure. I don't know if she's just kind of playing out the story. By the way, I just realized this is kind of late, but in Michigan there was a high school shooting, and essentially that kid killed 4 people and hurt another 7. I believe that's the extent to what happened. I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but now they're trying to press charges against the parents for apparently manslaughter. But here she just said that she brought up the point that the parents bought the gun for the kid. She might just be playing out the story. I'm not sure if she's trying to use that as a reason why they're pressing charges now, but let's assume they are. That's the reason she brought it up, because otherwise they could have just. Okay, we'll just talk about that. So that itself, that was a legal purchase, I believe. The father is able to buy the gun, whether it's for himself or, I mean, it's going to be his purchase if they plan to shoot it together. There's tons of people who do that. You can shoot if you're under 18, you just can't purchase it. So there's really nothing wrong there. And if she's using that as a reason why they should prosecute the parents, then I feel like at the point of the purchase, that's when he should have been arrested or pressed charges on, because if she's using that as a reason why they're pressing charges now, then why wouldn't you nip it at the bud? But the reason is that there isn't any laws against that, and it's totally legal. In fact, a bunch of people do that. A bunch of people buy weapons, firearms, and you're allowed to go train with them. You're allowed to go practice. You're allowed to introduce those firearms to younger individuals to practice with. There's nothing that's illegal about that. So we're going to keep playing the video here.
Reveal photos of the semi-automatic handgun, along with the caption, "Just got my new beauty today," including an emoji with hearts. "Sig Sauer 9mm. Any questions I will answer," end quote. Subsequent to the purchase of that weapon, one of Jennifer Crumbley's social media posts on about 11/27/21 read, quote, "Mom and Sunday testing out his new Christmas present," end quote. On November 21st, 21, a teacher at the Oxford High School observed Ethan Crumbley searching ammunition on his cell phone during class and reported the same to school officials.
All right, we got another stopping point here. So they made Instagram or social media posts about the purchase, which isn't anything irregular. I mean, people who typically buy firearms go practice with them. And I mean, it's an enjoyable experience to go practice with them for a lot of people. So kind of, I mean, what social media is nowadays is kind of just sharing what you're doing throughout the day. So there's nothing wrong about that. It doesn't, in my opinion, there's nothing dangerous at that moment where it would alarm the parents to kind of stop them or take the gun away or anything. It's kind of just showing that he's enjoying it. And I don't think this lady is anti-firearms or anything. It seems that she just really believes that the parents might be accountable. But yeah.
Jennifer Crumbley was contacted via voicemail by school personnel regarding that son's inappropriate internet search. School personnel indicate they followed that voicemail up with an email but received no response from either parent. Thereafter, Jennifer Crumbley exchanged text messages about the incident with her son on that day, stating, quote, "LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught," end quote.
All right, so that right there, that was maybe something that may be inappropriate for school. I mean, first of all, when you're at school, you're not supposed to be on your cell phone at all. So, I mean, if there's any wrongdoing there, I mean, you're already wrong for being on your phone technically. But I mean, as a parent, if you know that you bought this for your child and they really enjoy it, you know it's going to be on their mind. And of course, whatever's on your mind transfers to your habits. So you're going to be looking stuff up related, maybe even like different kind of like attachments you can add or whatever. So, I mean, as a parent, I mean, everybody has different ways of talking to their kids. But if I was in their shoes there at that point, I would probably talk to them how about it's inappropriate to be searching ammo at school because others might see it as wrong or that it's weird. But the action itself of searching ammo is nothing illegal or anything wrong about that. In fact, most people who have firearms are looking for prices, looking for different types of ammo. But school is definitely not the place to be doing it. because you're there at school to learn. I mean, that's the kind of interaction between the parents. So to me, I mean, I guess the parents getting contacted about the individual searching ammo at school. I mean, it's more of like, hey, this kid's on the phone at school. I mean, because the ammo itself is just ammo. I mean, a lot of people would be in jail if that was wrong, or a lot of people should be on a watch list if that's wrong. I mean, I know a lot of people, I'm not going to say that I've looked at ammo online because apparently that's bad, but I know a lot of people look at ammo online and nothing happens. I mean, it's the typical search if you own firearms. You're looking for prices and different types, and there's nothing wrong with that. And my point here is that the shooting itself is where everything turned bad. Anything that they're trying to use before that to like indicate that the parent should have known, like, I mean, I haven't seen anything so far in this video, but obviously for me, the shooting itself is where it goes bad. And the reason they're trying to bring in other things is because they're trying to blame the parents as well. But the shooting itself was where it went bad, and the person who committed that act was obviously the child. So we're going to keep playing this.
On November 30th, 21, the morning of the shooting, the next day, Ethan Crumbley's teacher came upon a note on Ethan's desk, which alarmed her to the point that she took a picture of it on her cell phone. The note contained the following: a drawing of a semi-automatic handgun pointing at the words, quote, "The thoughts won't stop, help me," end quote. In another section of the note was a drawing of a bullet with the following words above that bullet, quote, "Blood everywhere," end quote.
Okay, so here's our big first alarm, right? So this is the morning of the shooting at school. The parent or the teacher sees a note. This is our first sign that we know of so far of any kind of irregularities in this child's behavior or thoughts. He writes it down, and honestly, the way I see it is if you draw a gun in general, you're going to the principal's office. It doesn't matter anything else past that, but we get more. So it's pointing at, I believe, the words saying that the thoughts can't stop. The thoughts can't stop. If that was alone, you might be like, okay, we need to go see a counselor. Maybe you're not knowing how to deal with your thoughts or your energy, or maybe you need to start working out or like dealing with some stress. But that on top of the firearm that he drew, that's a huge red flag. And the teacher might have, I don't know what the teacher's story is, but she took a picture of it, obviously kind of maybe processing what the heck is going on, seeing if she should take it any further, maybe a little bit scared in the fact of like, why is this happening? Or, you know, why is the kid thinking that? Maybe kind of concerned for the kid. But this is really our first red flag. And again, I don't know it's if people think that the teacher should be charged, but technically if their logic is consistent, then the teacher should be facing manslaughter charges too, because she's the one who saw the note and didn't immediately take action. So if they're blaming people other than the shooter and their logic is being consistent, there's going to be a whole lot of people charged for this one person's actions. Technically, the person who sold the father the gun, like, this could go on forever because people are upset. And that's what my main point is that it's okay to be upset. Like, obviously this is a terrible situation, but we have laws that we need to follow, and people who need to be responsible are the people who take those actions. And I agree, if the parents are facing those manslaughter charges, if they can prove that they were negligible, they saw signs and ignored them or allowed this, or even conspired to help him do this, they should be 100% responsible. But the things that they're bringing up in their logic aren't pointing to those things. What it seems like, it's in a very emotional reaction to what happened. And since charging the school shooters doesn't do them justice, because, I mean, other people are already dead, they're trying to overreach and get the people around them too. And they just haven't had enough, I guess, logic or evidence to kind of prove any of that so far.
Between the drawing of the gun and the bullet is a drawing of a person who appears to have been shot twice and bleeding. Below that figure is a drawing of a laughing emoji. Further down the drawing are the words, dark. Quote, "My life is useless," end quote. And to the right of that are the words, quote, "The world is dead," end quote.
If all of this is in one drawing,
as a result, James and Jennifer Crumbley were immediately summoned to the school. A school counselor came to the classroom and removed the shooter and brought him to the office with his backpack. Counselor obtained the drawing, but the shooter had already altered it. The drawings of the gun and the bloody figure were scratched out along with the words, "Help me," and "My life is useless." "The world is dead," and "Blood everywhere." Those were all altered by him. At the meeting, James and Jennifer Crumbly were shown the drawing and were advised that they were required to get their son into counseling within 48 hours. Both James and Jennifer Crumbly failed to ask their son if he had his gun with him or where his gun was located, and failed to inspect his backpack for the presence of the gun, which he had with him. James and Jennifer Crumbly.
Okay, this is a game changer. I did not hear this the first time. This changes everything. I mean, everything before this, I don't know if she was trying to use that as well, but I mean, any of that didn't really make sense. I mean, she should have started here, because everything else is just a distraction up to this point. This is the main indicator right here, but I guess you have to tell the full story, so that does make sense. But no, I mean, absolutely. Like I was about to say, why the teacher did do something. The teacher obviously shouldn't face charges if their logic is consistent now, because she acted on something. The parents were summoned, and if you have a new gun and your first thing is responsibility, making sure they know how to maintain it, they're behaving correctly around it, they're not showing signs of like anger or not controlling their behavior, and then you see something like this, automatically that should be taken away. I mean, you should have a safe as soon as you buy a gun, or as soon as you can. But what I heard is that they had it in the drawer, just kind of like there. But man, when you start seeing these types of behaviors, like first of all, if they're just like pissed at people in general, like, you know, but no, I mean, that's taking it to the new extent. The teacher wouldn't have called them in if it was just a scratched out drawing. Obviously, to some extent, she's right. I mean, you can't see it anymore, but you have to kind of take her word for it, because why would he scratch it out? And you have to keep that gun away from him. But we're going to keep playing, because I'm not sure. I think they said this is the day of, so he might still have it in his backpack or whatever. The parents might be assuming it's at home. So, I mean, I sure hope the parents testify, because their story is going to be important. And if they are, like, I guess, negligible, then they should be held accountable. But if they're thinking that it's at home still, I mean, maybe it's just something that didn't cross their mind. They're worried about their child here. They got called in here. So I'm going to try to let it play on a little bit more.
Resisted the idea of then leaving the school at that time, of their son leaving the school at that time. Instead, James and Jennifer Crumbly left the high school without their son. He was returned to the classroom. When the news of the active shooter at Oxford High School had been made public, Jennifer Crumbly texted to her son at 1:22 p.m., quote, "Ethan, don't do it," end quote. At 1:37 p.m., James Crumbly called 911, reporting that a gun was missing from his house, and he believed his son may be the shooter. Further investigation revealed that
This is where it gets really tough, because they could have taken more actions, like immediately taking him home and things like that. But you still see signs of the mom saying, don't do it. Probably they get home and then they look for the weapon and it's not there. And then with those drawings, they're realizing what's happening. The father calls 911 to report the gun missing and saying, hey, like, we're going to do it. I mean, sure, we might have like not taken action before, or, I mean, who knows? How would you know when someone's going to do that? I guess the drawing is an indicator. That's where it gets a little confusing. I wouldn't even say confusing. It's just like, it's gray area, right? As far as like, should they be held accountable because of the drawing and not taking him home immediately when they didn't know that he had the gun in his backpack at that point? That's what I mean by gray area. I'm not trying to defend him or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, we don't know what they were thinking, where the gun was. He might have thought that he didn't know where the gun was. If he never told the child where the gun was and the kid just found it, he's probably thinking in his head where it's at, you know. So even if he's probably thinking, if this kid's thinking these thoughts, it doesn't matter because he doesn't know where the gun's at. We'll find out more about that later. But they do take action as far as they can once they get there. They call the police. They text the son, don't do it. Don't know how much that's going to help at this point. But it's a very interesting take right here. I mean, one of the big things is going to be how that meeting went with the counselor. Because if he still showed signs of like mental illness at the end of the counseling meeting or even during it, of course, like, not taking action seems negligible. But if the kid is somehow crazy enough to do this, would he also be crazy enough to kind of fake his way out of this and just kind of convince the parents at the time that he's fine? And then the parents are like, hey, what the heck's going on? Maybe, I mean, a big part of it is going to be the counselor's testimony. So I'm not even seeing this as a wrongful charging now. Now I'm starting to see this as like, okay, we need more details. Like, we need testimony. We need more evidence. Not even evidence, just more testimony. because there's some key parts in here that are going to be a key factor in what the parents were thinking when they left that school, because that's a big point. The biggest thing that they have right now is that they got called in because of this drawing, and then they decide to leave without the kid. Now, whether they know where the kid, if the kid knows where the gun's at, if the kid had the gun, I mean, obviously that's a big giveaway. Then, if they know that he has the gun at school, like, of course they deserve to be charged. A lot of small things here.
6-hour 9mm handgun purchased by James Crumbly was stored unlocked in a drawer in James and Jennifer's bedroom. The gun recovered from the shooter at the school after the shooting was the same gun that was purchased by his father, James Crumbly, on November 26, 2021, in the presence of his son. Based upon the foregoing, the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office requested and received, authorized, we charged 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter as to James Crumbly and 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter as to Jennifer Crumbly.
I do think that they should still be consistent. If they're going to charge them with the manslaughter on 4 counts, they should also charge them to, unless that's somehow included, I wouldn't know how that works. But I mean, the 7 people who were injured, if they're like, essentially whatever they charged this shooter for is what the parents would get charged for as well, if they're claiming that they're responsible fully. But I think this is definitely a case worth pressing charges and then taking it to court. It's a good thing that we are in the US, you're innocent until proven guilty, because you have a chance to kind of say your side of the story. It's not just someone decides your fate for you at the same time, because I mean, obviously we're missing a lot of details. This is very fresh, and it's a hugely impactful thing that's happening, where sometimes like these school shootings happen. Obviously when they do happen, it's terrible, but that we just want to make sure that you're not overreaching because of a horrific accident or a horrific situation. But this definitely seems to be worthwhile taking to court or pressing charges now. I think Keeley, on the fact that the parents got called in because of the drawing that was obviously not anything normal, and then they left. But that testimony right there is going to be so key. I think we're definitely going to follow up with this one. There's some small stuff that I want to know about.
I want to be really clear that these charges are intended to hold the individuals who contributed to this tragedy accountable, and also send a message that gun owners have a responsibility. When they fail to uphold that responsibility, there are serious and criminal consequences. As we work together to honor the lives lost and all of those impacted by the evil acts this week, justice for the victims and their families is at the forefront of today's announcement.
So right there's a huge thing, because I'm not sure what the laws are in Michigan, whether or not you have to have it in a safe or anything, if there's anything like that. But it's very, if there isn't a law, it's hard to say that. I mean, you could say, yes, you should be responsible, but to what extent, since there isn't a law in place? I'm not sure if there is. Please tell me if there is, because that'd be really helpful. But if there isn't a law in place, then it's very, situational, right? Because what if you practice on a regular basis and your child is a target shooter, or this is your hobby that's brought you together and you trust them with it? Would that level of responsibility be any less? Because what if you're teaching your child how to disassemble your weapon, how to clean it, how to maintain it, if that's going to be anything like in their hobby in the future, because it is illegal to do that, like to practice while you're under 18. So if there isn't a law in place, it's hard to say that like what level they should be held to in hindsight, because before that it wasn't a problem. Like, it wasn't a problem until now. So you can't just create this law and then charge them or anything like that. You have to be consistent. So if there isn't a law in place, it's kind of hard to point that out. There have to be obvious signs of negligible, like leaving the gun around fully loaded, low experience, like you've never done anything like that before. But these people were going practicing and things, so I don't know. Their testimony, the parents' testimony, is going to be also very key. Who knows if this maniac talked their parents into getting them a gun so he can do this, like it was premeditated or something, and the parents just like fell for it because they wanted to make the kid happy and practice with them. Maybe it was a hobby of theirs. There's a lot of things that are gonna be key pieces to this incident, really. But that's hard. What she's saying right now is very. It's gonna depend on a lot of things because it varies from household to household. Where, like, let's say you have a troublemaker, you're not gonna want to leave a gun just lying there. But if you have a straight A student who you agree, like, hey, if you make good grades and you take care of everything you're supposed to, and you're on your stuff, then yeah, we can take this hobby and kind of get good at something else. Maybe take another career field because this is a viable option and you're good at it. And I'm going to teach you how to maintain it and clean it and disassemble and reassemble and add attachments and just get a good feel for it. So I mean, every household's different, but
We need to do better in this country. We need to say enough is enough. For our kids, our teachers, parents, for all of us in this community and the communities across this nation. Happy to take questions now.
Prosecutor. Last night the superintendent
One moment.
posted,
Go ahead, Mr. Schkat.
Last night the superintendent posted a video and suggested that as a result of that meeting they saw no reason to contact law enforcement, that there was no danger. Have you seen his video that was posted to YouTube last night? And is there any thought you could share on that?
again, the YouTube video, if he was just
I
showing
viewed
off the
portions of it
weapon.
and was briefed on the contents of the video.
Were there any missteps by the school? Should they have reported right away to law enforcement after seeing those images?
Any individual who had the opportunity to stop this tragedy should have done so. The question is, what did they know, and when did they know it?
It's fair. That's
I've
very
laid out
fair.
the facts that were sworn to this afternoon and are the basis for the charges here. Did you have a question?
Yes, you said, we need to do better, there needs to be change to prevent tragedies like this. It's extremely rare for parents to be charged in school shootings. Are you trying to set a new standard, or is the evidence simply overwhelming in this case?
I have tremendous
Different
compassion and empathy
context.
for parents who have children who are struggling and at risk for whatever reason. And I am by no means saying that an active shooter situation should always result in a criminal prosecution
She's very
against
fair
parents.
right now. Very fair.
But the facts of this case are so egregious. Reading this document, looking at it, reading the words, "help me," with a gun, blood everywhere. This doesn't just impact me as a prosecutor and a lawyer, it impacts me as a mother. The notion that a parent could read those words and also know that their son had access to a deadly weapon that they gave him is unconscionable, and I think it's criminal. It is criminal.
Is the parents acting?
All right, sorry about that. I got carried away with a few of those questions. Those are really good questions, and I feel like she had really good responses. I mean, this is one of the very few times where I start a video with a certain way of thinking, still trying to be as open-minded as possible. By the end of the video, I'm completely like, the context changes everything. She's right. Initially, you wouldn't think that the parents get charged with the actions of a child, but there was some key things I didn't even know, and that's why it's important to kind of like to listen. And I appreciate her honesty, like really, because a lot of times when you just accuse, you kind of you break any kind of mutual understanding, because there's just so much accusations, and then you fall into this trap of fighting the accusations instead of looking at what really happened. And so by her pointing out simply what happened, the facts, like the storyline of what happened, I mean, it kind of allowed me to kind of see things from a different point. I was already saying like, this doesn't really make sense, but there was a certain part where it did. Like, there was a very important part, essentially being that counselor meeting where the parents were there as well. I believe they said that they had 48 hours to get a counselor for him, but it happened that same day. So this is going to be very key. Like, she's correct. Like, not every incident, like, it's very contextual depending on the incident. But this incident, since the parents were aware at a certain point, what did they walk away knowing? And I mean, she's being very fair. I'm curious on how any trial is going to go. If she's going to continue to be this fair, or be more pressurist, like trying to get them to crack. I mean, I know people do their jobs differently, but I mean, that's going to be the biggest part of what they know. I wish this could go longer. I think I might try live streaming instead of the long form videos. That way I could kind of like talk to chat and stuff like as we go. But because I think there's a lot of things to talk about here, really, and I'm curious to know what you guys think. I typically don't post videos like this, but I may start. I kind of like breaking things down, and the main thing I like is kind of understanding what laws we have, and then certain cases, and then how they kind of intertwine, and whether they end up kind of following what the law is, or if we think it kind of strays away from it. It's very interesting because every case is different. So, and I know more recently, more people have started to focus on these cases because it affects how we see our rights. But this is a very tragic situation, and I think this prosecutor has reasonable intentions. I mean, she knows more than we did, and now we know as well that there was some more stuff. I kind of agree with her more now. I'm very curious to know what happened during those meetings and what the parents were thinking when they left. I would love for them to testify because I want to hear what they have to say. I mean, I don't want to hear from their lawyers on their own experience because there's like a gap or disconnect. You're going to be hearing the lawyers like biases and the story they're trying to tell instead of the questions that can be answered from the direct source. I mean, if they truly believe they're innocent, I don't see why they shouldn't testify and talk about what they were thinking, because even if they were wrong, you just have to say what you were thinking. And like just being as most honest as possible is going to serve you the best. Ignore the mob mentality. A lot of people probably already hate them because they produced like this monster. But at the end of the day, like if they really didn't know, then they just have to be honest. Very interesting case. Yeah, I want to definitely look into this more and follow up. But that's going to be the end of this video. Thanks for you guys staying to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a thumbs up. If I should do more of these type of videos as well, definitely leave a thumbs up. I'm going to be continuing to do my reviews and stuff because I enjoy that as well. But who knows? It might be a little bit of both. All right, that's going to be it for me. Later, guys.